Hey everybody, Samantha Basuto Drucker here, Ask Sam, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing acclaimed actor Kevin Scott Allen about his new book, Murder Can Be Fatal. Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Samantha. How are you?
Very well. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thanks for having me. Believe me.
For our audiences that don't know, Kevin Scott Allen is an acclaimed actor, coach, and author. He's written, first of all, he has a career that spans 5 decades as an acclaimed actor. And I was going through his filmography today. Oh my gosh, Kevin.
Well,
So many characters, so many productions, many that I realized I remember. And it was so interesting to go through. So you've been an actor, you are an actor, you are a coach that's extremely well sought after. And you've written a book about the technique of acting. And then all of a sudden,
yes.
fiction, a mystery. Murder Can Be Fatal. I got to tell you, everybody, I can't put it down. Kevin, you got to tell me a little bit about this book. Why fiction all of a sudden?
Of course. I actually began writing fiction way back when I was in college, when I was English was a minor, and I enjoyed it a great deal. And I always had this plan, weird though I probably am, that if something happened, I got in a car wreck, I lost my legs, I went blind, I couldn't act anymore because I had started acting as a child and had kept working. But if I thought, if I can't act anymore, I will write. Well, that was my grand plan. And I continued to write, but never really seriously. But when I was growing up, my favorite relative was an uncle of mine. He was an author. His name was Robert Portner Kohler, a mystery author. And I spent a great deal of time with him when I was younger. And we would play games. The television, believe it or not, even though I was on television, wasn't turned on in our house very much. My parents didn't believe in watching, putting people in front of the TV and just watching television mindlessly. So I wasn't brought up doing that. So to entertain ourselves in the evenings or afternoons, we would do a lot of, I guess, something unheard of nowadays, social interaction.
Oh,
And that
wow.
included my uncle and I would create stories. We used to try to create a mystery and stump each other. Okay, here's the crime scene. Here's what they found. And then the game was you could ask certain questions. You couldn't ask who did it, but you would learn to ask leading questions about clues that might be there to try to figure out what was going on. Either not only who the victim was, perhaps, but then who the killer was or who the thief was. We would spend, gosh, sometimes 3 hours at this game. And I loved it because he was such a master traditional mystery storyteller that I learned really young all the elements that went into making a mystery. But it was just a game for me, just something to entertain me. Probably because I was so hyper, he thought if I don't sit this kid down and focus him, he's going to drive me crazy.
Now, I have a
So,
question though. I mean,
yeah,
okay, so that makes perfect sense, where the mysteries came from, but also you have played so many characters, many of
yeah,
whom have seen murders,
yeah.
um, or
Um,
been a part of murders or murder adjacent. Do you
and
think that your career in so many productions as an actor also helped you write this book in terms of its, I don't know, theme, framework?
yes, I do. And in fact, that's a really interesting point you brought up because I play, I'm a nice guy, but I play 90% of the time sons of bitches, or disrespectful, people on the edge. Um, that, in fact, I wrote a collection of monologues called Characters on the Edge, which is about people who are just on sort of the edge of society. And that influenced the world, but it also influenced my lead character. Because when I started to create that, that's just what came out. This is a person who sees the world this way. And I learned early on because I have an angular face, the way the camera, the way the lights pick it up, it always looks serious. And I had one casting director say, every time I see you, I'm just scared to death before you even open your mouth. She said, I know you're a nice guy, but that's just, you have a look that scares me. Well, I realized, oh, okay, that's what's going on here. But I also had a teacher when I was younger who had said, just because a character is an asshole, or pardon my language, a real evil person, doesn't mean they think they're evil. Doesn't mean they think that they're not loved or are unlovable. It just so happens that that's how they have needed to navigate through the world. So I've always looked for the vulnerability in these rough characters. The love, where is the love? What do they consider important? What do they do? Do they pick up puppies in the street? Do they help the poor? And so that gave me a way of looking at a lead character who is down on his luck, but just despite what the world throws at him, can't help seeing some good in it, no matter how small it might be. And I think that's because that's how I approach every character I play. I'm doing it soon for Netflix, which is probably the most disgusting human being I've ever had to play. But my challenge is, where's the good in this guy? Find it.
Wow. Yeah, I get it. Well, it makes sense. All of this makes sense. I'm very struck by what you just said, because I found your book to be very cinematic as I was reading it right from the beginning in its tone. I had a flashback to the opening sequence of Sunset Boulevard.
Oh,
Not as glamorous,
yeah.
not in the big glamorous mansion.
No, but I know what you mean.
A little B&B in Koreatown, but the tone of the beginning had that kind of feel to it. It's just, that's the flashback I had.
Well, that I will attribute to my uncle, because he wrote in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, and he wrote in that old-fashioned crime noir style, which I obviously, when I started to put, I was going to say pen to paper, but fingers to keyboard, that's the style that came out. And I thought, oh, cool, I like this. It's a traditional mystery style, but I'm going to see what I can pour into it. And I attribute that to him. It's not, and I think you're 100% right. Now that I think about it, that the opening scene of the body in the pool and just the narrative that goes along with it is very much that way. And I had not thought about that before. That's very cool. I'm going to use that somehow. I don't know, but I really like that. But you hit the nail on the head.
Well, your hard work did not go unappreciated.
Yay.
And I know how hard it is to write a book. I've written a book.
Written a bunch.
And 90 Days to Husband #2. And I know how hard it is to write a whole book. It's a huge undertaking.
Yes, it is.
Ask how long it took you to write this book?
This is my fourth, believe it or not. 3 months, which it was the pandemic. I was stuck in my house. They weren't even doing interviews because now if you're not in the film or TV or acting business, folks, for the last 2.5 years, all your auditions are online. They're just like this. You don't go and meet anybody anymore. And they began that around June-ish of 2020, when they realized, okay, this lockdown and pandemic aren't going anywhere anytime soon. But from March, April, May, the first 3 months of the pandemic, nobody knew what was going on. You didn't leave your house except to go to the grocery store. And then, you look like you're in a hazmat suit. So I'm, as I said, I'm hyper. I always have been. I couldn't just sit home and, stare at my dog, stare at the walls. I was going stir crazy. And I thought, what am I going to do? And I thought, now's the time to start another book. And I had finished one before. It was a coming of age story that my agency was currently trying to market.
Mhm.
And I got a phone call from one of the agents who said, let me tell you that they loved it. It's a phenomenal story. She said, but we're having trouble right now with this genre. Let me tell you what's selling like crazy and what I would suggest. I said, oh, here we go. She said, mysteries. She said, mysteries are always popular. They're the most popular genre out there. And if you can get me a mystery that I can sell first, because this would have been my first foray into fiction rather, I can slip this other book in afterwards. So I thought, well, that's kind of stupid. So all the work that I spent, that other book, by the way, took me 2 years. All these last 2 years, I just say, well, bye-bye. But, there's nothing I like more than a challenge. You tell me I can't do something, guess what I'm going to do? So I said, fine, I'll sit down and write you a mystery. What do you think of that? And I sat down every day, and in 3 months, there it was. And not only did it save my sanity, and not only was it, okay, if you think you need this tool in order to sell this other one, not only did I create that, it eclipsed the other stories that I wanted to tell. I had so much fun with it. And I thought, this is not going to be a standalone. This is going to be one of a franchise, because I liked the lead character so much, and I enjoyed looking at the world through his eyes so much that I had such a good time that it didn't, all the other worries about where you're going to market it, who's going to buy it, blah, blah, blah.
Didn't matter.
Didn't care.
I think one of the positives of the pandemic was that when we were all shut in, we had time on our hands. With the world slowing down, we all had time on our hands for creative outlet.
Mhm.
And I feel like now we're in a sort of a renaissance outpouring of pent up art that was created during the pandemic, which is now being brought to life in cinema, in visual arts, in literature. And I think it's it's a nice juxtaposition compared to the state of the whole world at large.
Yes,
It's a nice counterbalance.
I agree.
Or at least like the what do you call it, the Tootsie Roll second prize, is that we have all of this outpouring of art right now. I could not ignore the cinematic value of your book. So speaking of franchises, I could totally see this character having 1 and 2 and 3. I can see a cinematic franchise or a television series of different seasons very easily. So my question is, when are we going to see the screenplay or TV treatment version of this? When does this come out on the screen?
Well, I happen to have. Soonish. And I'm being ishish right now because first of all, I want to really see what kind of legs this story has in this form first. Secondly, it's always easier to sell a screenplay when it's come from another genre. When you can say, believe it or not, Hollywood is a bizarre place. What I mean by that is writing a screenplay is about as similar to writing a novel as painting the Mona Lisa is to painting your kitchen. There's color that goes on another surface, and that's about it. in terms of similarities. A screenplay, and this is what I learned from my years of acting, a screenplay is a blueprint of pictures, diagrams of a story. And it's the actors, it's the director, the cinematographer, all these people then figure out how to transport this, two-dimensional blueprint into a three-dimensional story that works. Whereas a book, the words are the story on the page.
Yep.
And then those visions happen in the reader's head. So they're completely different forms of writing, completely different.
I
But
wrote a screenplay once.
yeah,
First I wrote it as a television treatment, and I thought, oh, I'll have this done in a couple of weeks. Well, it took me 3 months.
yeah.
And then the producer said, can you bring it back as a screenplay? I said, sure, just, give me a couple months, I'll have it done. I had no idea what I was
Of
doing.
course not. Yeah.
And 3 months turned into 3 years. It took me
Wow.
3 years to really get it right.
Wow.
To do, a romantic comedy that I could feel good about. I want to make sure we don't run out of time, because I
Sure.
have to cover all of the important things. Where can we get your book? Please tell us all the places where we can
Certainly.
get your book, Murder Can Be Fatal.
Amazon is probably the best marketplace right now. It's going to be up on Barnes and Noble and several other venues as well. But Amazon is the first one to release it. So you can go to Amazon.com. You can get a hardcover, you can get a soft paperback cover, you can get it on an ebook. And I am currently working on the audiobook version. The management company I'm with wanted, and the publisher, Film Arts Press, wanted to get the ebook, hardcover, paperback out first. They said, we're not going to wait for an audiobook. Let's get this out, but the audiobook will be coming. It's just a matter of all that. So Amazon.com, Murder Can Be Fatal, can be in your doorstep. Well, it can be in your Kindle in 5 minutes, can be in your doorstep in a day or two.
I love that. And of course, I have to add that Conquering the Film and Television audition, also one of your classics that your students and fans adore you for. I know that going from acting technique to fiction is a total leap, but you have managed to do both extraordinarily well. But I always believe that talented people can do many, many things well.
Thank you. It's very sweet of you. And the audition book is really simply about how to help actors learn how to tell a story. So if you can't tell a story, you can't really act. And if you can't tell a story, you can't write. So hopefully that my ability to tell a story was able to leapfrog both areas of employment, so to speak. But I enjoyed writing both books. I really did.
I can tell, because it's a pleasure to read. So
Especially when it's upside down, it's really a pleasure. That's the trick.
Oh my. This book is a total pleasure to read. And it shows that you must have had a great time, a lot of fun writing it, because it's a total pleasure to read.
Oh,
And
great.
I believe that, yes, this is proof that you know how to tell one hell of a story, Kevin. This is really fun.
Great.
Like I said, I can't put it down. I don't have a lot of time to read in my life, but the spare minutes I do have, I'm like, oh, I want to know what happens next. So it's really a pleasure to be able to talk to you, to be able to share this with my audience, to be able to talk to you. Thank you so much for sharing the book, which is new and fresh off the press. It's very exciting. So everyone, I've had the great pleasure today of speaking with actor, coach, and author, and now mystery author, Kevin Scott Allen, coming to me from LA today. And thank you so much for joining me. I'm Samantha Pasuto Drucker, and this is Ask Sam. And today we have asked Kevin Scott Allen all about his book, Murder Can Be Fatal, available on Amazon. Thank you for joining me.